Welcome, everybody. I'm Laura DeFranco, the CEO of Brave Healer Productions, where we have a mission to wake the world up to what is possible, one brave word at a time. And here today to help me with that mission are some of the most amazing author experts of a new book that we have coming out called The Ancestors Within. Recognize and embrace the gifts of your origins. This book is the third book in the series led by Amy Gillespie Doughtery. Amy, before I introduce these guests, I'm going to say a huge thank you to you. Thank you for having this mission and putting this stellar group of humans together, and really just for your bigger vision about educating the world about ancestral healing. I can't believe we're here for book 3. Book 4 coming after that, like, whoa, right? It's a lot. I love you, Amy. I know that the world is already changed by our first 2 in the series, and I'm so grateful for you and our collaboration. So without further ado, please meet some of the authors of this amazing book. I've got Donald Dodson here. He's the owner of Dodson Designs, where he creates custom leather creations that make your dreams come true. OMG, Donald, I need something like that. Okay. Marsha Culver walks between worlds, dives into your darkness right alongside you, channels your magical potential, and serenades you into manifestation. I need a little bit of that too. Okay. Reverend Elizabeth Mccain is here. She is an eccentric Southern storyteller, performer, spiritual counselor, and interfaith minister, and author of a compelling memoir, A Lesbian Belle Tells. Thank you for being here, Elizabeth. And Tanio McCallum is a writing coach, transformational workshop facilitator, and founder of Rites of Passage, spelled with a W, you guys. You gotta love that, right? I'm a writing fan, of course. You guys, welcome. What's going on?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know I'm catching you off guard because that means y'all have to unmute and like say something, right? All right. I'm so happy to introduce you all to our audience today. If y'all didn't hear from the bios, what a powerful group we have. Boy, oh boy. And that goes for the entire author cast. But for today, Donald, you're going to start this party off. Tell us about the amazing chapter that you wrote.
Hi, I wrote chapter 18, which is basically self-discovery through craft. And I'm sort of not from this. This is sort of not my thing, my niche. It's more, I'm a maker. I make leather things for folks. But I discovered that in the process of learning how to make things, projects, and even commissions, that you learn a lot about yourself when things go right and when things go wrong. And I realized that this is really an excellent tool that people can use, much cheaper than therapy, but not saying you shouldn't have therapy, but because you're confronted with all kinds of stimulus, stressors, or great things in the process of creating a project. So you learn how you react to problems, how you solve this, those problems, how you decide or how quickly you decide, and like, how do you prepare? Do you research stuff or you jump right in? You know, the proverbial "I don't need no stinking directions" kind of person. So my tool is simply just a project to. It could be any project, but I picked one specifically in my field of leatherwork. Because it's also very close to, the artisan skills and something that those of us from our ancestors even have been doing for thousands of years. So there's kind of a connection there too. So you learn about yourself, you learn about what others have done, and you create something in the process.
I love that so much. You're sitting in your workshop right now, it looks like.
Of course.
Yeah, you got to grab that beautiful thing behind you and show it to us a little bit closer to the camera. Like, you guys who are just listening, I feel sorry for you because you're about to see this beautiful or miss this beautiful. And that's a briefcase, it looks like.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. Share about your process for a moment.
My making process or
Yeah.
so that's derived primarily by what the client needs or wants, again, to make them happy, and it could be something as germane as a bag, or plain as a bag, or something crazy like armor or a cosplay, but it's driven by what they need, and then with a big dose of Dodson creativity in there. Something I'm really big about is creativity, and how that can just make you feel great about yourself, and you end up creating something in the process.
Oh, wait, did you just say armor?
Yes.
Have you created armor?
Yes. I have several different pieces, not a full suit, although I have been asked, so I'm working on that.
Is this your first published writing?
Yes. I mean, I've written before, but not in this context. Yeah.
How was this process for you?
It was good. Again, I'm a little out of my field because I don't really see myself as a healer type. I'm more of a, hey, I'm going to talk about how to make cool stuff. But I mean, the process went well, and again, I learned a lot through that process.
That's awesome. I can't wait for people to read your chapter and really dive into. I love that you all are giving the readers a practical experience to play with and to dabble with. And really, I think you all know that is how people will be waking up to something new, right? The perspective that we give them. Oh my gosh, I could go on and on. So I thank all of you, and you too, Donald, for being so generous in terms of sharing your master teachings, really, and waking people up to the possibility that there's something that they haven't learned yet that might change everything. Like, it's that big of a deal for me, especially with these books.
It can be very transformative.
Oh my gosh, yes, no doubt. Okay, so Marcia, you are next up. Tell us about your amazing chapter.
Hello.
Hello.
I wrote chapter 11, and so many stories, so many gifts. I wrote loads of different stories about how many gifts I've been able to connect with to my ancestors. So one of mine is chainmail, Donald. So someday I will commission you to do a piece for me. That'd be wonderful. So I have lots of different stories. One of my stories is about writing. So I chose as my tool automatic writing, which is one of the fantastic ways that I connect with my ancestors. I got to put a poem in there as well that my cousin wrote, Betty Lynn Grew, and she wrote about our family and about some of the strife that they went through, but also the conquering. So I love that. And I got to express lots of different things in this book. I've been in all three so far, and it's been a really exciting ride for me. So.
Okay, I got a question for you, because you know
Yes.
that I am also a fan of, there's so many ways to call automatic writing, intuitive writing, connected writing,
Right.
therapeutic writing. And so I sit and I know that I channel from something much bigger than me, but what would you say to someone who asks, how do you know it's your ancestors you're channeling, or as opposed to other sorts of guides? Do you even try to discern between that? Does it even matter? Why would it matter?
I do try to discern between that, because there are some of my ancestors that I didn't get to know, like my grandmother. She passed away before I was born. So, and I feel like I'm a lot like her. So it took me a while to recognize her, because our energies are so much the same. So when it comes through in a voice that's like mine, that's how I feel it's her. Other people though get it in a different way. So when you feel like that is the person and you get those goosebumps, that cha-ching moment, that's how I know. So.
I love that. That helps me think about that process a little bit differently. I don't often go there in terms of like thinking of who this is moving through, or why even that person would be. But I love that idea, because yeah, it could matter.
It could, yes. And I always feel like if it's well, I create sacred space wherever I'm at before I start anything. So I suggest that in the chapter as well. And I feel like that protects me from anything that might be dark, you know. So,
oh my gosh, don't get me started on that conversation. We could be here all day about that one. You know,
right.
But these are the people, and I'm talking to our viewers right now too, like, you know, listen to some of the brilliant, amazing master teachers here, and they've been there, done that, and they understand the process. You all are teaching awareness tools, and you're helping people that next stepping stone, that next step, that next level of awareness and connection, which can bring, you all know, magical things to your life. I appreciate you all for that reason. Thank you, Marcia.
Thank you.
Elizabeth, tell us about your chapter.
Hello, hello. I'm glad to be here. My chapter is chapter 20, called Queer Forgiveness, Healing Our Mother Wound with the Divine Feminine. And I wrote it because I had just been through a healing process. It's my story of how I forgave my mother and myself at a much deeper level after my mother died. And I wrote this a little bit in my memoir that was published 2 years ago. I went into the deeper story of communicating with my wise and well ancestors, an ancient Celtic priestess from Ireland. So I'm out of the closet now, out of the closet as a lesbian, out of the closet with communicating with Celtic priestesses. So if there are any Unitarians or Episcopalians out there, I'm out. So it was great timing, because I was just thinking about the topic of forgiveness. I used to lead forgiveness workshops like way before the pandemic. And I've had some renewed energy around that topic. And then when I found out about this opportunity, I thought, that's perfect. So I tell the story of not only how I forgave her, but also how I forgave myself at a much deeper level, because I think forgiveness happens in layers, and forgiveness happens at an even deeper level after someone dies, after a parent dies, especially. And my tool, though, can be applied to any relationship. It's a ritual of repair, a forgiveness ritual of repair that I learned from a psychologist in Asheville, North Carolina, who's written an amazing book on ancestral medicine. And he does work with ancestral lineage healing. And so the idea is that most of our ancestors, at least three generations back, died with many unhealed issues, and they can impact us at an unconscious level, impact us, the living, as their descendants. So I learned by going through some workshops and some trainings, both before the pandemic and during the pandemic, that there's good news. We can help those ancestors heal, which helps us heal. And that's about bringing in, I call them the wise and well ones from ancient times. You can call in one. You don't have to know their name, his or her or their name at all. You can just connect and get help that way. And so I thought it would be really powerful to let people know that it's never too late to forgive anyone. And we have to forgive ourselves really first before we can forgive others. And when those ancestors are hovering around, as they were when I was finishing writing my memoir, not in a terrible way, but it was like, I'm getting a little distracted here. I think mama's around me. I think she's hovering a little too much. So I just needed to go a little deeper level because she was worried about me. And so with connecting through the Celtic priestess, which anybody can call in, an ancient ancestor, you just have to say a wise and well one, So that's a little bit about my chapter. It was fun, and it was a little challenging as well, because I'm coming out of the closet, y'all, again. It's a lifelong experience.
I love a wise and well one. That's a good delineation for when you're calling in people to help. It's good. Yeah. It's a good idea to be picky about who you call in. You're making me think of one other thing, though. It's something that I hear a lot in terms of forgiving a parent while they're still alive versus after they've passed. What do you want to share with listeners about that?
That's a great question. I think certainly we can forgive at many different levels. And forgiveness, the way I like to explain forgiveness is it's giving up all hope for a better past, giving up all hope for a better past and finding peace in the present and hope for the future. And I think we can forgive someone without necessarily having reconciliation. Sometimes we will have reconciliation. That's great. In my case, I didn't really with my mother, and I knew that. So I think if we can embrace that as an ongoing process of, it's letting go of that suffering, really letting go of victim consciousness, letting go of focusing too much on the past, and really having compassion for ourselves and whoever the person or people are that we're trying to forgive. And I think during this pandemic, we've had, or at least I've had, a lot of time to process that and really reflect on that a lot and come to a deeper level of healing and peace. And that's a great thing to have.
Yeah, thank you, Elizabeth. All right, Tanio, we want to hear about your chapter.
Hi, so much of what has already been said so relates to my chapter, and I can really see, Elizabeth, how your chapter, which comes right before my chapter, which is chapter 21, it just ties in so beautifully. So as I said, my chapter is 21, and it's all about unlocking the secret of time travel. So actually being able to go back to the past, and with the magic of, I like to use a feather pen, we can actually rewrite the past. And by doing so, we are rewriting and rewiring our brain and completely changing our present. So the story that I chose to write about in this chapter was a moment where I felt unlovable. And that's why in this chapter, I chose to focus on rewriting your love story, because I feel like everything begins with love. So much begins with love. And so I highlight 3 tools that I call the soil, the seed, and the sown, or using imagination, creation, and telling to go back in and recreate moments that maybe weren't so fantastic from our past, or stories, like really connecting what Elizabeth said, stories that, you know, we were born into, stories that we were told into our culture, into our family, from our ancestors, and even our life experiences, and going back to these moments and literally rewriting them using these tools that I highlight in this chapter, and rewriting them, recreating something new that makes us feel better, and then telling that, sharing that story over and over again. And by doing that, we literally are changing the past, which is something I've been trying to do my entire life and could never figure out until just recently, even though I've been writing my whole life. So this is a really magical chapter for me. And it really connected me to my ancestors in a way that I hadn't ever felt before, connected to them in a positive way. I never really knew how to kind of relate to my ancestors, because there were stories, like kind of the dark ones, that I didn't want to be in touch with and didn't want to welcome their gifts. So when I was asked to write a chapter sharing the gifts of my ancestors, I really had a wonderful conversation with them in nature, and found that my ancestors, it doesn't have to be narrow. My ancestors can be from all of my past lives, all the support and wise ones. And so this chapter just dropped into me. Like I wrote, there's a message from my ancestors that begins this chapter, and it just dropped into me. And these tools just dropped down directly from my ancestors onto the page. So I'm excited to run workshops related to this, because this is what I do. I run workshops, transformational workshops, the rites of passage, to help us transform inside through the beautiful tool of writing.
Well, again, you know, I'm a fan of the writing. You're making me think of something that came up the other day on this topic, and it was that a lot of the times we're talking about these things that were passed down that might have been not so great or a little icky or whatever, the wounds. But honestly, I loved looking back at what I now see as the strengths that were, and, you know, this book celebrates the gifts. So, you know, we can rewrite the past, but there are also places where we need to just pause. And I was thinking about all the entrepreneurs in that line for me. And I'm like, wow, they really did that at a time where they had no resources or that much different resources, right, than we do today. And I was proud of them in that moment, thinking about what they did with what they had at the time that they were living and becoming entrepreneurs. I don't even know if their mind was in a place of, of that struggle. But was there anything, Tanya, that you wanted to say about that, about really celebrating the good stuff?
Yeah, I think acknowledging the not so good stuff opens the door for acknowledging the fantastic stuff, and opens my heart and my mind and my body for all of the good. And so I feel like there's such power, and I've got warriors and healers and magic people and just this wisdom. And so often I go outwards to find answers, and then I always remind myself, just go inwards, because they're already here. They're all right here. And so I love that, like, where you get for this chapter and these tools, like, you get to create the stories that you want to create and take that power back, and to really re-envision your life so that in this moment, in this present moment, you can be living out the beautiful, positive stories that you've created and lived.
Yeah, so that's part of the magic of this book. And for you listeners who are just dabbling in the world of ancestral healing, get ready for the adventure. Seriously, get ready to understand something that you may have not even realized was an open door to a level of healing, right? And that's how I feel about it all the time. I'm so grateful to Amy for introducing me to the topic in general. I have a beautiful photo of my grandparents and their children out in the front of this property that they purchased when they moved to America from Italy. And grandpa opened up the barber shop, and grandma was the beauty salon next door, right? And it's this beautiful photo of them standing out in front of their place. And that had been packed away for so long. And I took it out at some point of understanding what this was all about, and created an altar where the photo sits, and I can just be in the energy. And of course, hopefully the good energy, because we all know that some of our stories are the opposite. But Tanya said it opens the door to the awareness. And that's what you all are doing. So, all right, I've got this next question for all of you. And Marcia, you're the first one up for this. When you learned about ancestral healing, right? I was sharing a little bit, one of my aha moments, but I want to know, when you learned that it was possible to connect with your ancestors and work with modalities that help you heal the things in your life that are going on now that you want to change. Like when you realized what was possible with all of this, tell us about one of your aha moments. What did you realize was possible?
Oh my gosh, there are so many.
I know. It's a totally unfair question for me to ask you to pick one. What's the one that comes to you right now?
Well, I think that a poverty mentality was so ingrained in my relatives, and a lot of them believed that what they had wasn't worth anything. And yet one of my great grandfathers had a cabin across the river from Big Sky, Montana, which is some of the most priceless land anywhere, So I think being able to heal that was one of the most fabulous things in my life. And I know that I've seen other people in my family be able to heal that and overcome that, and be absolutely comfortable having plenty of money, So I think that's one of the wonderful things, but there are so many again.
Oh my gosh, that's a huge one though. Thank you for sharing. I love it when you guys get personal about the moments, because it helps people, just like you're doing in your chapters with your beautiful, vulnerable, brave words of your stories. You're giving other people a chance to have permission to share theirs, right? I love hearing that one about the land. That's so interesting. All right. So Elizabeth, how about you? Can you grab onto one of those aha moments for us?
Yes, absolutely, because I'm having them right now. And the timing again is perfect. I happen to be in my hometown right now in Okolona, Mississippi. The timing just worked out. I'm on something called a Southern sabbatical. I'm visiting friends and I'm doing a little networking to book my one-woman show for the fall. But a little story, an aha moment. Sunday afternoon, I went by my childhood home, which is being donated to an organization that is going to house survivors of domestic violence. And the home has been lovingly restored by some very progressive Catholic sisters here in Okolona. And this afternoon, actually, we are going over, they're going to go with me, Sisters Liz and Sister Nancy, to do a releasing ritual. I brought my smudge stick, and I'm going to do this ritual of repair in releasing the energies, both from my family members and people who have rented the house. It was rented and it was sitting there falling apart. It was really sad. And now it's been lovingly restored. And the first woman is moving in this afternoon. I felt that as I said it. So the timing is just so perfect. And it's a theme of death and rebirth, you know, from death comes a new beginning. And the other thing I meant to say before about the healing ritual, the tool is, for me, it's so important to heal in community, right? We can't do that alone. I can't do that alone. And so the fact that these loving sisters, I've had 2 dinners and a brunch with them already. And I taught, I didn't know if they'd be open to the smudging thing because they are Catholic, but they're feminists. They're like renegades. They're amazing. And they're like, yeah, we know about smudging, dear. We'll come over and do it with you and witness it with you. I'm like, wow, this is truly amazing and truly interfaith. And the transformation that's coming from it is just so amazing. And I think our ancestors always want us to have healing and transformation, and they love us, and we sometimes forget that. And so I was just reminded of that when I was looking in the windows. I couldn't get in on Sunday. It's going to be this afternoon. We had to reschedule, but I walked around the house and did a little smudging and said some prayers, and I felt like most of that has been released, and it's a different place now, and that just makes my heart sing.
Oh, that's awesome. How cool that you're there, and even how cool that you're there doing this interview today. Super awesome.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, so Tanya, let's move to you. Tell me about a moment when you had an aha about this, getting introduced to what was possible with ancestral healing.
I really feel like it was that moment I had already mentioned where I was walking down. I have a very magical path near me by the Hudson River where I was walking and just calling in my ancestors, and where they really just answered me. Like, I didn't realize that they were there. Like, they were just there all the time. They are here all the time for like whatever I need. And that was an aha moment for me. It wasn't about a specific gift, except for really about the gift of like asking and then receiving, and all the gifts that came from that, like that this chapter came from that. And then I have a whole bunch of more just motivation and encouragement that I can call on. Like when I do my own writing, I call on, I have an oracle deck that was designed by Lisa Lavart, and it's just these gorgeous goddesses. And so I call on a goddess and I call on an ancestor, and I say, who is going to guide me today when I do my writing? Who's going to encourage me and give me the confidence that I need when I run my amazing writing retreats? And so it's really more specific. I now feel like I have a whole room full of ancestors, and I can call on any of them, and each of them have something different to offer me depending on what gift I'm ready and calling on to offer the world.
I love that. Awesome. Thank you. I was sitting here thinking, okay, and this is really too for our viewers, we're all so in this topic, the smudge, the calling in the ancestors, it's all just sort of normal to us. Like we have our rituals and practices, but I was sitting here thinking, do I call in Catherine Chiaramontato, like my Italian grandmother, right, with her maiden name? Or can I just sit here and just say ancestors in general? Whoever wants to help me, come on in, right? Are y'all specific about that?
I am. I always call in wise and well ancestors
Right.
first.
Wise and well.
Because
I like
before,
that.
and I didn't know this until a couple of years ago, I had been calling in specific, like I would go to the cemetery and do these healing rituals with each of my parents, a lot of them, because there was a lot of healing to be done. And it helped somewhat, but what I didn't realize is that, they had some unhealed issues and that they can hover in spirit. Not all, but usually they do. And so I was taught, and I feel that it's true. If you can call in a specific name, but you always ask. And you ask your ancient wise and well ancestor to be an intermediary and say, is grandma so-and-so healed enough to be able to help me? Maybe she is, and maybe she's not. And if
I
she's
like
not,
that.
you ask your wise and well ancient, or an ancient one, or the great mother, or whoever, to put that ancestor in a healing cocoon for a little while. So I sometimes do that when I feel like my mother is still feeling guilty and hovering. She's still hovering a little bit. So she needs a little more time in the healing cocoon. So that's the way I do it.
I like it. Okay. So Donald, let's move around to you and hear about your aha.
So the ancestor aspect or perspective is really actually very new to me, starting with writing this book. Beyond the, your relatives kind of thing, or want to know them more. And as a creative person, an artist, I've done many different crafts. You doubt yourself a lot. You get everything from why don't you get a real job to, you want to you just wonder what you are, so in writing this section and in considering this ancestor aspect, it helped me not be so lost, helped me kind of find that connection to my dad, my grandfather, who I never met, his grandfather. All of those folks worked with their hands. Maybe they weren't artists, but they were creative people. And that helped me sort of legitimize myself. Like, this is what we've been doing for who knows how long. So for me, that was much more of a me finding them, or just sort of looking back a little bit. And certainly I can look back, historically, to leather workers or artisans over the decades, centuries, or even millennia. And it lets you know they're there in some fashion. But yeah, it was definitely sort of more accidental for me, just kind of finding that connection, and not very deliberate on my part. But then again, I'm not in a healing space kind of thing. So although I'm open to those ideas, that's not what I was seeking. So that's where I came from.
Well, and Donald just said, I think one of the keys to the whole thing, and that is being open to, hearing messages, being open to something new, being open to learning. It's one of the tenets in, the martial arts, which I practiced for a long time, is that beginner's mind. And I think all of you have that. That's why I'm always feeling so honored to be playing in the sandbox with you all, because you're walking the walk of that beginner's mind. And so this, new idea, you get excited about learning, and yeah, that's where I want to play every day. Right.
Or can I say something?
Sure.
It's just following up on what Donald said and what you're saying as well. And it's so interesting about just being open for the messages too, because a siren just went by and I had a little panic. I was like, oh, I better turn mute. But the siren came by, and then I realized, I was like, wait, maybe that's a message. It can be this simple. If you're not used to tapping into your ancestors, this can be a message. And then it reminded me, my grandfather lived in Nanjing, China, and he used to drive an ambulance to help people during the Nanjing massacre to be into the safety zone. So I suddenly felt like this is a message from him. And then what is he saying now? He's coming in here. And then it's for me later after this call to tap into that and say, okay, well, what is it that he's bringing to this conversation?
Nice.
Very cool.
It's a fun way to live, actually, in this possibility awareness space, right? I love that, Tanya.
Wow.
Thank you.
Tanya, thank you. Can I just add to that? Thank you so much for that reminder and hearing the siren, because I got some help. I'm just now realizing this in this moment. This morning, I had some Wi-Fi problems at my friend's house out in the country, and I was panicking. And I am in this bank that my grandfather helped found in 1931, and my dad was president. And it worked out. I called and they're like, sure, honey, come on in. We'll put you in this office. No problem. You have privacy. And I was like, oh, I'm getting help from the male ancestors today, even though I wrote the chapter about with the divine feminine. It's all good, divine masculine and feminine. So thank you for that reminder.
Thank you, James McCallum.
Wonderful.
Yes. And James McCain. Wow.
All right, you guys. Elizabeth, I'm going to start with you for the next question. Here it goes. So to me, community, and y'all are talking about your different communities, which is, beautiful, but community has meant the difference between success and failure for me. One of you mentioned healing in community, right? I think it was you, Elizabeth. So tell me about your community and what it's meant to you.
What a wonderful question, because I am all about community. I call myself an extrovert, a moderate extrovert with the depth of an introvert. And so community has always been really important to me. And at first, during the pandemic, that was really hard. Soon I learned to connect with all kinds of people on Zoom and also in person recently. So I have several communities, this writing community through you, that's been really helpful. And with Amy, who's a wonderful woman, wonderful new friend. I have a singing community and various spiritual communities. And what I'm hoping to do in the fall, which is part of the reason that I'm down here, is I'm going to be leading workshops on storytelling called Porch Stories about reviving community and reviving relationships, because I think we've all kind of lost some skills and we've missed being in person on a regular basis. And I really thrive with that. So I just noticed I'm thriving down here, seeing all these friends and people I've known for a long time and new friends. Asheville, I've been to North Carolina and Tennessee and Mississippi. And I just feel so energized, like it was exactly what my soul needed. And I know it's what other people need too. So I'm going around to a few universities. I just went to Mississippi State yesterday and got that booked. And this professor of gender studies was telling me that the students are starved for more healing community and better communication skills, because it's not the same on Zoom, and Zoom's okay, right? But in person, we feel the energy, we look into each other's eyes and there's an energetic exchange. So that's what I'm hoping to deepen and help people create again, and in my own personal life as well.
Thank you. Tanya, how about you? When you think of community, what has that meant to you?
Community has meant the world to me, especially during COVID, where I felt so isolated. And I think also community can start with just one person and it can expand from there. And that's what I've been doing. All my workshops went online during COVID, and I could actually feel I can feel an incredible energy online. Of course, it's different than in person, but I've built out my community a lot because I can reach people in different areas and different time zones that I wouldn't be able to in person. So I feel like that's really expanded. And so it's like, I feel like community grows almost like a flower opening and expanding and then spreading those seeds further and further to create new communities. And it's my dream to continue doing that. And with the launching of Rites of Passage and all of these different new exciting workshops, I'm really happy to expand, and I'm ready to expand with the support of my ancestors a lot larger. It's key. We can't do this alone, and we're not meant to.
I love the vision of a flower. Thank you for that. Donald, how about you? Tell me a little bit about your community, what that's meant to you as an artisan.
Well, a lot, because as an artisan, it's very easy to just become inward, because you can just focus on creating whatever it is you're creating. But my communities have given me purpose, because as someone who doesn't, I don't like to create art for just art's sake, noble as that might be. I like it to be used. So when then one of these communities I work with asks me to make something that they're going to, again, be happy about, make them feel good or use on a daily basis, it just becomes even more profound. So having communities like my steampunk fun folks who have really created a tribe and support you, you know, because all these communities, you fill a niche and that helps you have more purpose. Or even this community with the ancestors community, I helped with the book cover, and all of a sudden everybody was like, that's awesome. And they were reaching out and just expressing that. So it really helped me feel that connectivity and connection and purpose to everything around me. Because again, it's very easy, and especially in this day and age, to sort of do your thing off in the corner, and you might show a picture of it, but you're not really connecting. They're connecting to that thing. So it's really critical, and that's really been just that support in terms of just, that's awesome, the affirmation, and of course, obviously, when they might ask me to make something for them, that's doubly so, of course. And then learning from them.
Yes, of course. I'll have to give Donald and I are both part of the Success Champion Network and community, and I'll have to give Donnie a quick shout out because that community has been another incredible community that has supported, I know, the things that Donald has done, the things that I have done. And so just a quick shout out to Donnie on that one.
Yeah, very much, very much.
So Marcia, how about you? Tell me a little bit about your community and what that's meant to you.
Oh my gosh, my community is coast to coast, and I love that. I get to travel around, and Elizabeth, you keep talking about the South, and I haven't been there for a while, and I'm supposed to leave in a couple of days. Oh. So
Wow.
I'm excited about that, and to see everyone down south. So I'm in Montana right now. Love the community here as well. I get to share all kinds of different knowledge. I as well am Reverend, but I don't usually put that in because I talk to so many different crowds, so many circles. So pagan circles, and I speak in church, I do sermons, but the whole community has been so supportive of everything that all the ventures that I've done. And anybody who knows me knows it's a myriad of things as well. So the bigger, the better, right? Even have some friends in other countries that have been very supportive of everything that I've tried to do and that I've accomplished. So I appreciate all of those people and love them all. And I'm always excited to expand that into new areas. So that'll be coming soon.
Beautiful. I love listening to y'all talk about this. It's such a great topic. I do believe that there's healing alone in a moment of awakening. And I also believe that there's healing in a moment when you're witnessed by somebody else. I then also believe that there's healing in a moment when you're in a group, and that there's layers and levels to the healing possibility in our communities, whatever the size. Whether we're doing the alone inner work or the big ass, I'll grab the microphone and stand on the stage in front of 200 people kind of work, right? And everything in between is so much fun to hear you all talk about your communities. Okay, I got one last question for you today. I really want you to think about the listeners here on this one. Tani, I'm going to start with you. Share one of your personal awareness practices. Think about something simple and foundational that you could share with the listeners that might be an easy step in for them to this journey that we've been talking about today. What's one of your personal practices?
So I journal. Personal practice for me is journaling every single day since my fifth grade, or actually it was my fifth grade teacher, Mrs. Wilkes, taught me how to journal write. And I have kept a journal religiously, dedicatedly since then. And so that's my go-to, that's my place, that's my sandy beach. That's my space. That's my everything. Every morning I start with a hot drink and a nice cup of coffee, and I put on a candle, and I have a flower at my desk, and I have a beautiful view to look out on. And I write in my journal. I have colored pencils, I have colored markers, I have pastels. I bring in all that magic and I just sit, and whether it's 5 minutes or an hour, I sit, and that's how I tap into myself and get centered and start my day. And that's been the door for me, and the window. I'm using all these different metaphors, but it's been like the place for me that I can tap into all the different parts of myself internally. And also it's been a seat of inspiration where all my writing comes from.
Yes, I think, are all of us journalers here? Donald, yeah, I wondered, like, I think that it's so powerful. Oh my goodness, that's another topic. Don't get me started, because it's like one of my favorite ever. Donald, how about you? What's one of your personal awareness practices? Maybe aside from your craft, like maybe that'll be a more fair question. Because I know you're going to say, when I'm sitting with my leather, Laura.
Well,
what else?
So I was a teacher prior to this, or I'm a teacher still, because people oftentimes ask me they want help because they want to try this, which is, again, how I kind of got to this path of craft as a self-discovery. But reflective teaching was a big thing, where you basically either you journal it or just think about, like, how did the day go? And that's something I oftentimes look at. I was just at a convention this weekend, and I was thinking about, well, how did the convention go? How did I do? Not just the money, but the connections I made and all those other aspects. So reflection's a big part, but I think the more salient point for folks who are trying to get involved in this is definitely directed to ancestors, in that they've all done what you're trying to do with far less. So whether you're trying to knit, crochet, do paper making, or whatever, there's so many resources out there for folks to learn from that didn't exist. So 200, 300 years ago, they didn't have an internet. They didn't have books. Well, they had books, but those were harder to get. It might have been a guild. It might have been a trade secret. So if you want to try a new craft or a new exploring anything, it's all been done before with a lot less. So you can do it too. It's not as hard as you think. So that's kind of what I oftentimes reflect upon when I'm stuck in a problem or trying to figure something out, is they've made far beautiful than I have with far less. So I should be able to up for this small challenge.
Well, such a great reminder. Thank you. I love that. Marcia, how about you? Tell us about one of your practices.
Well, I'm actually sitting in my wood shop right now, which is funny. This is an illusion. I too immerse myself in projects. But one of the things that helps me the most when I'm on the road is immersing myself in nature. So I have a national parks pass, and I love to go in and just be in nature and absolutely immerse myself in it and think about, all the things that are happening around me. Watch the little ants and see what they're doing and everything that's going on, so that I can really, really connect with that and be grounded in that moment right there. So I find that extremely healing.
That's one of my favorites. It was hummingbirds for me this week. Oh my goodness. Could have sat there for hours watching that. That was just so beautiful. Ants, I got you. Frogs are another one of my favorites.
Yes.
I love that, Marcia. Thank you.
Butterflies.
Yes.
Butterflies.
All of
Dragonflies.
Dragonflies. Oh my gosh. Yes. Let's make this list. My mom and sister moved from California, and they were talking a little bit about the seasons and the humidity here on the East Coast versus what we experienced growing up on the West Coast. And there was a little bit of humidity complaining going on. And I said, yeah, but the fireflies. And, I will never give up fireflies. Bring on the humidity, because that is like the most magical thing ever. Elizabeth, close us out today, girl. What's your Yes.
Well, I have a couple I've been doing recently. I believe in slowing down, and I'm finally getting the message that it's really good and okay and fun to slow down. So some practices I have, like in the morning, I just lie there and rest and do some deep breathing. And I ask for some inspiration, and I pause for gratitude. Frogs, you mentioned frogs. So last night I was at my friend Glenda and Kenny's house, and these frogs were getting really loud. And I mean, we had to stop talking and like honor the frogs and the flower trees. And then I've been getting up early, which is kind of unusual. And the most spectacular sunsets are happening down here. You know, I watch it go from deep orange to yellow to the day. And the other way I love to connect is with dogs, y'all. Dogs are very spiritual. And I've been traveling for a month now, visiting different friends and places, and I really miss our dogs. And so my friends have this wonderful dog who's an old poodle, and he's slowing down, but that's okay. And he would just come up to me. I was taking care of him while they were out of town for the weekend, and he would just stare at me, you know, with these big brown eyes. They've got cataracts, bless his heart, he's getting older, but he would force me to not only slow down, but be present with him. He didn't like it when I'm on my devices, and neither do our dogs, Teddy and Lucy. He would just stand there and move his head in for a head rub. So I'm a dog lover. So slowing down for nature, for the great Mother Earth and all of her creation, and animals and people as well, and really honoring those moments of savoring and having gratitude. That really helps me a lot.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And to all of you amazing authors, thank you so much for what you do in the world and for being here to share it with everyone.
Welcome.
So
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is
you,
great.
Laura.
Thank you.
listeners, get ready for these brilliant chapters. And of course, you're listening to these authors today and you're hearing something that might be sparking you up and lighting you up. Go on down into the show notes because I have everybody hooked up with their websites. Go explore, take the next step, click on their site, see what they're up to, because these people are up to some badassery, y'all. And they will be giving you life-changing ideas, beautiful art, that's practical and functional, and amongst other things that I can't even think of right now. Like literally, this is big potatoes to me. These people are generously here for you. So go find out what they're up to. And of course, if you are ready to join us for our live stream book launch party, that's going to be on June 7th, 12 noon Eastern. We're going to gather with all of the ancestors within authors for a little party. And that's going to be on the Brave Healer Productions Facebook page. You can see the link down below on that one too. And of course, if you're listening to this after that date, well, hop over to Amazon because the book is ready and you can grab your copy at that point. And we can't wait to hear how you like it. You can come into the Ancestors Within community on Facebook after you read, and you can rub elbows with our authors. That is a gift that you will not get in many books. All right, so come on in, ask them questions. They're there to support you. Super duper awesome. I will put the link to the group down below as well. Lastly, today, everybody, remember, your words change the world when you're brave enough to share them. So it's time to be brave. See you next time, everyone. Bye, authors.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.